On September 24, 2013, Gary Knox tweeted, "Remember the name, Paige Bueckers, 6th grade. Think Diana Taurasi. Best 6th grade guard I've ever seen. St. Louis Park." This is the Museum of Twitter, the show we talk about the most important tweets in the history of Twitter.com. It's Sports Tweets Saturday, and because this week was the WNBA draft, I thought I had to cover what I think is the best prediction in the history of sports Twitter. Because this is insane. A lot of people predict that their team will win a championship at the end of the year. A lot of people predict that a player that is active will be an all-star. But not many people compare a 6th grader to one of the greatest players ever to play their sport and end up being right. For those who don't know, Paige Bueckers is a women's basketball player who was just drafted number 1 overall by the Dallas Wings in the WNBA draft. Before that, she played for the University of Connecticut, where they just won a national title. She's one of the greatest college players in women's basketball history. But here in this photo, she is a 6th grader, probably around 11 years old. And somehow, Gary Knox knew to say, "Remember the name." But I'm sure you have some questions. 1, why is that filter on the photo? Answer, I have no idea. But the thing is, people want to forget this, people want to memory hold this, but back in 2013, we were putting filters on photos where they did not belong. Also, just recently he posted the original photo without the filter. I don't know, it looks fine either way. 2, who is Diana Taurasi? Diana Taurasi is one of the greatest women's basketball players ever to live. Now recently, Gary did clarify that he wasn't actually comparing their games, as Diana Taurasi doesn't play exactly like Paige Bueckers does. He was just saying that she's going to be as good as Diana Taurasi, which is insane. It would be like saying about a boys basketball player that he was going to be as good as LeBron when he was 11. And the last thing you're probably wondering is, why did this guy post a picture of an 11-year-old who he apparently didn't know and told people to watch out for her? So the answer is twofold. Grace Rayner of The Athletic spoke to Gary about this, and she mentions that at the time, Gary was running a Minnesota-based preps basketball website. That is a website that keeps track of high school basketball goings-on in the state of Minnesota. Okay, but if it's high school basketball, why was he caring about this random 6th grader? And who even is this guy now? Currently, he is a photojournalist at KRE 11, which is a local television station in Minneapolis, and he actually wasn't in the gym with Paige Bueckers because of his preps website at all. He was there because his daughter, who was a high school basketball player at the time, was participating in an open gym at Hopkins High. He says they had an open gym at Hopkins High School, and they had 3 courts. They had varsity court, a JV court, and a sophomore court. And he said that when he was there, a couple parents were coming around saying, "Hey, have you seen that 6th grader over there?" I said, "No, what 6th grader?" And I looked around, and all of a sudden it was, "Oh yeah, I see exactly who you're talking about. She was just over there putting in work and doing her thing on the sophomore freshman court." Later, he says it was like watching a child prodigy play Mozart. And so yeah, while his comparison may seem a bit hyperbolic, if I saw a 6th grader completely dominating sophomores and freshmen in an open gym, I'd be like, yeah, she's really special. And this is a guy who thinks about high school basketball all the time. And he does mention that he got permission from Paige Bueckers' father before posting the photo. As you can imagine, this tweet did not make almost any impact when it was tweeted. Not many people on Twitter are thinking about 6th graders who play basketball. But as Paige became more and more successful as she committed to UConn, it started to creep up a little bit. As far as I can tell, it first blew up during Paige's sophomore year at UConn. This is when the ESPN assignment desk asked to use the photo of Paige and said they'd give him credit. And I do find it a little funny that he ended up responding to that tweet saying that he saw the photo on TV but he didn't get credit, which is par for the course for the worldwide leader. But it really mostly blew up in the past few weeks. Because as I mentioned, she both won a national title and was drafted number 1 overall in the WNBA draft. And people really lost their mind, as people do when there's a crazy accurate prediction. The great Trevon Edwards said, "Gary Knox, you had that eye back then." I Only Say Facts called it the greatest heat check the game has ever seen. Jake said, "Comparing a 6th grader to Diana Taurasi and being right is so gangster." Braven compared him to the guy who 8 years ago said, "Just buy $1 worth of Bitcoin, please." Hell, the official account from Merriam-Webster replied to his tweet with the definition of the word prescient. And extremely appropriately, Matthew A. Cherry called him Lisan al-Gaib, which of course is a reference to the prophecy in Dune. I think the lesson here is you just gotta shoot your shot when it comes to predictions. Yes, occasionally you'll get lambasted on one of those old takes exposed accounts, which I kinda hate, by the way, but if you get a take that is this specific and this right, you are a Twitter legend forever. And if you get a take wrong, if you make a crazy prediction and you're wrong, people won't remember it probably, unless you're someone really famous. For example, no one remembers that on March 3rd, 2018, I tweeted, "Shaquem Griffin is going to be a Hall of Famer. Remember this take in 20 years? And that prediction is just as bad as Gary's prediction was good. Shaquem Griffin only lasted 3 years in the NFL, and he only recorded 25 total tackles. But the thing is, if he actually was so good that he made the Hall of Fame, and I got to retweet this tweet and say, "Hey, I was right," I'd be a legend. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott, Jake Christie. Follow me for a new tweet every day, and consider subscribing at patreon.com/Museum of Twitter, where you can vote on what I cover on Subscriber Sundays, and you get the weekly bonus episode, The Museum of Not Twitter.